Hey guys, today we will be finishing 1.17. We're just talking about the claims and counterclaims and things like that. Um, and then this is like the last lesson before we go into, we kind of start talking about the essay, and that's going to be your final for this class. So let's go ahead and get it. I want you to know that I recorded most of this and found out I didn't record. So, yeah, we're going to start by rereading. So, actually, college is very much worth it.
Actually, College is Very Much Worth It by Andrew J. Rotherham, May 19th, 2011. Lately, it's become fashionable, especially among the highly credentialed, to question whether it's really worth it to go to college. A recent report from the Harvard Graduate School of Education proposed de-emphasizing college as the primary goal of our education system in favor of multiple pathways for students. Earlier this month, New York Magazine devoted almost 4,000 words to profiling venture capitalists and college graduates James Altucher and Peter Thiel and their efforts to convince Americans that they'd be better off skipping college. Thiel is even creating a $100,000 fellowship for young people who agree to delay going to college in favor of an internship. Make no mistake, there is widespread dissatisfaction with higher education. According to a new survey released by the Pew Research Center, only 40% of Americans felt that colleges provided an excellent or good value for their money. At the same time, 86% of college graduates still felt the investment was a good one for them. To understand these competing views, you have to juggle a few different ideas at once. First, there are plenty of problems with higher education. Poor quality, even at brand name schools, and out-of-control costs are two of the biggest. College presidents themselves shared some of these concerns and others with the Pew researchers. Second, it's true. College isn't for everyone. There are plenty of rewarding and important jobs and careers that do not require college. And due to the sluggish economy, there may in fact be more graduates than the current job market needs, or a temporary college bubble. Jobs for recent grads are harder to find, and salaries are lower, but that won't last forever. And in spite of all of this, the data make clear that getting a college education is still a good idea. College graduates earn more and are more likely to have a job in the first place, and is especially important for some Americans. Anti-college sentiment is nothing new. Mark Twain admonished us not to let schooling interfere with education, and we've always celebrated the maverick who blazes their own path. These days, it's Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg, Microsoft's Bill Gates, or Apple's Steve Jobs, all college dropouts who are held up as evidence of why all that time sitting in class is better spent elsewhere. Perhaps, but it's also worth remembering that their companies are bursting with college graduates. And what about all the people who didn't finish college and are not at the helm of a wildly successful venture? Nobody spends a lot of time highlighting their stories, but let's not lose sight of what happens to them. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, in 2010, the median weekly earnings for someone with some college but no degree were $712, compared to $1,038 for a college graduate. That's almost $17,000 over the course of a year, and there is an even bigger divide for those with less education. College graduates are also more likely to be in jobs with better benefits, further widening the divide. Meanwhile, in 2010, the unemployment rate was 9.2% for those with only some college and more than 10% for those with just a high school degree, but it was 5.4% for college graduates. The economic gaps between college completers and those with less education are getting larger too. It's also odd to talk down college, which is the most effective social mobility strategy we have, at the very time Americans are becoming concerned about income inequality. Ron Haskins of the Brookings Institution found that without a college degree, only 14% of Americans from the bottom fifth of parental income reach the top two-fifths. But if they complete college, 41% of this same group can then expect to make it to the top two-fifths. Haskins' data also shows the extent to which debates like this are a luxury of the privileged, because their children enjoy much more of a safety net and the risks are different for them. In other words, children from low-income families gain more by going to college than children of the wealthy lose by not going. So here's the key takeaway. Education gives you choices. Assuming you don't pile up mountains of debt that constrain your career options, and that outcome is avoidable, or go to a school where just fogging a mirror is good enough to get a diploma, there are not a lot of downsides to going to college. The stories of entrepreneurs who bootstrapped themselves are exciting, but most of us are not a Gates or Zuckerberg. So before heeding the advice of the college naysayers, make sure you understand the stakes and the odds. Or, here's a good rule of thumb instead. When people who worked hard to achieve something that has benefited them start telling you that it's really not all that important or useful, beware. Disclosure. I'm a member of the visiting committee for the Harvard Graduate School of Education.
So I'm just making sure that it's still on because it wasn't, I did the whole freaking thing. Okay. So we're at college is very much worth it because we did this the other day. So, the writer of this opinion piece begins by laying out the arguments against the central claim. So how does this affect the appeal of his argument? So I said this approach makes his argument more valid because the author comes across as more fair-minded, which helps his argument. So he does, he's like, oh, well, you're seeing the other side, which is good. So, some other people say this, but in actuality, this is true. So how does the author's use of the word bursting in paragraph 4 contribute to his argument? So we're talking about, anti-college sentiment is nothing new. Mark Twain admonished us not to let schooling interfere with education, and we've always celebrated the maverick who blazes his own path. These days, if Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg, Microsoft's Bill Gates, Microsoft's Bill Gates, and Apple's Steve Jobs, all college dropouts, who are held up as evidence as to why all that time sitting in class is better spent elsewhere. Perhaps it's also worth remembering that their companies are bursting with college graduates. And what about the people who didn't finish college and are not at the helm of a wildly successful venture? So he used bursting to emphasize how many high-end jobs need college graduates and how many college graduates have jobs. So it's bursting. And I mean, they are not like what happens to everybody, so that's important to keep in mind. Right. What evidence does the writer present to support his opinion that a college education is a good idea? So the author presents the information about unemployment and how the unemployment numbers are higher for those who are with just a high school diploma, while it's lower for those with a college degree. And then the author discusses famous college dropouts, but emphasizes that they are rare and that they rely on college graduates. And then he talks about education gives you a choice, and then college education allows for social mobility. It talks about more college education usually means that you can climb higher. And he talked about, 2/5, you can get up to the higher, while the lower 1/5. Sorry, I'm trying to remember. But if they complete college, 41% of the same group can then expect to make it to the top 2/5. Bottom fifth of parental income reach the top 2/5. So that's important to keep in mind too. College education is really, it sucks that so many people, it's so expensive, and the author did state that. It also sucks that everyone is told that they have to get a college education to succeed, which isn't the truth. Um, but, um, I mean, college education is important for many degrees um, today, um, and to make good money. Now, again, it's a lot more that goes into that, but I have horror stories from my degree. All right. So now it says compare the claims made by each of these two writers. Evaluate the reasons and evidence used by each writer. What is relevant and convincing? Okay, so I started this. Oh, did not what I wanted. Okay, so why college isn't and shouldn't have to be for everyone. That's the first text. So the claim is a four-year degree isn't necessary for many of tomorrow's good jobs. So the evidence is not every young person is suited for a four-year college, which is very much true. But they shouldn't have to basically be a failure because they're not suited for a college. My sister, she lasted a year and at Fort Hays and then dropped out. And now she's working on her EMT. So I mean that shows that not everyone is suited for college. There should be an alternative to a four-year degree, including more vocational training. So that would be welding, that would be mechanic, different repairing, things like that. And then last year, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, 46% of recent college graduates were in jobs that don't even require a college degree. So that's some evidence that they talk about. Definitely need an alternative. So the counterclaim. So what's the opposite? Oh, that was scary. So what's the opposite of that? The opposite of that is a degree from a prestigious university, which is very much true, can open doors. Hi. Can open doors to she's mad because I'm sitting someplace else. To elite business schools. I spelled business very wrong. Business schools and law schools, and to jobs paying hundreds of thousands, if not millions a year. Let me tell you, I'm not making millions. Okay, so that's the opposite of what they're saying. So, okay. So what's the evidence that supports that? Yep. So what's the big thing that I've been talking about? Students have been told over and over that they need a college education to succeed. So it's hard to get that out. I know that I was like that. I'm like, no, you have to go to college. You have to go to college. You have to go to college. A lot of everything was kind of saying that. This says with inequality at record levels and almost all the economic gains going to the top, there's more pressure than ever to get the golden ring. Definitely. All of it is definitely going to the top. So, that's your counterclaims on that one. So, we're going to look at the other one. Alright, so actually, college is very much worth it. Data. The data shows that a college education helps you succeed. You're more likely to have a job. You're more likely to make more money. You're more likely to have health insurance. The data shows that college education is worth it. College graduates earn more and are more likely to have a job. So it talks about unemployment is lower for college graduates. Income is higher. What was it? No degree is $712 a week, while compared to $1,038 for college graduate. Kids earn $1,000 per week compared to 12 with some college. Some college is better than me. Education gives you choices. Social mobility. Checking the timer. Children from low-income families gain more from going to college. Yeah. That's some evidence that he uses. Okay. So the counterclaim. It's high. So it's become fashionable to question whether college is really worth it. Go to college. Is college really worth it? Americans would be better off skipping college because of the debt, because of the other things. So what's the evidence that talks about? Poor quality and high cost was a big thing. Widespread dissatisfaction with college education. Only 40% of Americans felt that colleges provided excellent or good value for their money. I went into a lot of debt because I was stupid. But I feel like I got a good education. But I got a good education personally. Everywhere. I'm really struggling this time. For quality, out of control. Costs, yes. High cost. There are plenty of rewarding and important jobs and careers that don't require college. Rewarding and important jobs that do not require. Okay. So that's the evidence for that. That's all of that stuff. Definitely talking about it. Okay. So, oh, that was an accident. So then we have 8, 9, and 10, and then you don't have to, and then check your understanding, and then not this and not that. So I do want you to do what elements, if any, do you think are missing from either of these pieces? Explain. And then why do you think Andrew Rotherman disclosed at the end of his article that he's a member of an educational group? How does this disclosure affect your perception of the argument? And then what is the call to action in each of these pieces? So I want you to do 8, 9, and 10, and then check your understanding. Which writer presents the most convincing argument? Why is that evidence supports? So I do want you to do those three. Okay, if you have any questions, let me know. But that is the assignment for today, and then yeah, probably continue tomorrow, and then we'll talk about your essay. So, all right, have a great day, guys.